Hello and welcome to Health and You. I am Sumi Sukanya Datta, and today we are going to discuss vitamin D and does everyone needs its supplementation during winter months. To put things in context, US's Endocrine Society in June this year advised against vitamin D testing and supplementation for healthy adults till the age of 75 years. This came amid growing concerns about the abuse of the sunshine vitamin supplements and overdiagnosis of its deficiency. To discuss this, we have two eminent experts, Dr. Rajiv Jayadevan and Dr. Deepti Khatuja. Dr. Jayadevan is gastroenterologist and medical researcher based in Kerala, and Deepti is chief clinical nutritionist with Fortis Memorial Research Institute at Gurgaon. Welcome, Dr. Jayadevan and Dr. Deepti. We are so glad
Thank
that
you.
you could join us today. So, we will start by asking you, Dr. Jayadevan, what is the latest evidence and guidance on vitamin D supplementation?
Yes, vitamin D, I would say at the outset, there's a problem with that word. Vitamin D is really not a vitamin. It's more of a hormone. Now,
Right.
vitamin by definition is a substance that cannot be made in the body and has to be taken from outside. Now, we all know very well that vitamin D is made in our own body, precisely on our skin, and it's further modified by our internal organs, which is the liver and the kidney. So the 125 hydroxylated form is what is used by the body for various functions. So first up, it is not a vitamin, and there is a general feeling among the public that vitamins are harmless and can be taken in unlimited amounts for extended periods of time. So that is where I would caution you about unlimited use and unwarranted use and excessive dosing. Vitamin D can be dangerous and even fatal if taken in high doses without reason for a long period of time.
Okay.
Fatal in the sense it can cause death. Does it happen commonly? No. But can it happen? Yes. So that is why we must discuss very carefully the role of vitamin D supplements, which basically means a person requiring to take these supplements or pills. So there are individuals who need it and there are many who don't. It's important we differentiate between the two.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Dr. Deepti, please tell us, in northern, many parts of northern India and in Delhi and NCR particularly, the pollution is also very high at this point of the year, and it's the pattern that we see every year. Like Dr. Jayadevan said, one vitamin D is not a vitamin in itself; it's more of a hormone, and its intake should be very cautious. So, do you think there is a need for us to take vitamin D supplements, particularly during these months, this period of the year? Should everyone take the supplementation for this vitamin?
Thank you so much for this question. And I totally agree what Dr. Jayadevan have said that we have to be very, very cautious because hypervitaminosis is the term which we use when there is an over excess intake and it can be fatal as doctor said. So we have to be cautious and there cannot be a blind statement that during these time everyone should take. As Sir said, it is a hormonal because it can be prepared in the body. Although, if you see medically, sunlight with the skin exposure, our bodies can prepare naturally. But definitely with the winters, with the pollution layer, that can get impacted. So, my take home message would be don't unnecessary do the supplementation. We have to be cautious. There have been other ways by which we can actually take care, in during winters, whatever possible time of the sunlight becomes very important. For what time are we exposing ourselves and during what duration? So normally we would see people exposing themselves either early mornings or late evenings, because in between during the peak time the rays are very strong and we all feel that we will get darker complexions, and we normally sit with our full clothes being covered on our skins and applying a lot of sunscreens, which will definitely impact and do not let your body do the vitamin D synthesis. So my key take home message would be the sunlight exposure and the way what we are doing, and for at least minimum 30 to 45 minutes of sunlight exposure, is important. And along with that, once you have taken the supplementation with the help of the fortification of the foods, because if you see in India, the major sources that which are there in the vitamin D rich foods are basically the fatty fishes like mackerel, tuna, salmon. And since majority of the Indian population is pure vegetarian, there the impact gets impacted. So that is why government has come up with lot of fortification programs, wherein with this fortified food regular intake, you can actually able to maintain the normal levels, even if you don't take the supplementations. So the simple example that I would suggest is, now if you see any good brands of milk, F plus is the sign which is used for fortification. And milk, since it is a good source of calcium, it is a good source of fat, and vitamin D is a fat soluble vitamin. That means you need fat as a source of absorption. Milk has been come out to be an excellent source of vitamin D fortification, and nowadays the milk are being fortified with vitamin D. So if we are taking adequate amount of milk and milk products made from toned milk, which have a moderate fat value, not very low, not very high, like the full cream milk or buffalo's milk, which can lead to obesity and higher intake of fat. But if we are able to take care of these food products along with the good calcium intake, average calcium intake of having green leafy vegetables, our body can maintain the levels of vitamin D synthesis. So that along with the exposure, we should aim rather than the supplementation. But yes, in critical cases where there are lower levels, the supplementation needs to be there. But again, it has to be under the supervision of the healthcare. The dosage have to be decided by your healthcare personnel, by your physician, based on what levels of vitamin D reports you are having, what all doses you need, and for how long. So that
Yeah.
is something which is very, very important we need to take on. And I
As
would give also one emphasis where the population is non-vegetarian. So rather than the red meat and the chicken, if they can give an emphasis at least twice a week on these fishes, that can help to maintain along with their vitamin D levels the good non-vegetarian sources which are more healthy. And we have found enough in scientific researches, fish has been an excellent source from the heart health also.
Yeah. Dr. Jayadevan, you mentioned that, of course, there is an abuse of supplementation that we keep hearing about. But do we know, or what do you think is the right approach? For instance, how do I know that whether I need vitamin D supplementation? What if I have to, for example, take supplementation during the winter months? What do you think is the correct way of going about it?
Yes, vitamin D, the manufacture, the production of vitamin D in our body, it depends considerably on the exposure to sun. For instance, if during winter months, I'm talking
Mm-hmm.
about Western nations, the duration of the day itself is quite short. By the time the sun comes out, it'll be 10 a.m. And then by 4 o'clock, you get out of the office, it's all dark. I've lived in these countries
Right.
for well over a decade. Now, in such situations, it's not easy, it's not even possible to get natural sunlight exposure, because by the time you go out for your morning walk, it's dark, and when you come back in the evening, it's dark as well. So where do you get your sunshine from? Because most people work indoors. So in such situations, the the requirement for supplements will be different from most parts of India, which is close to the equator, where there's really not much of a difference in terms of say darker hours of the day, if you will. But there are places that are, for instance, in northern parts of India, in the heights of winter, when people do not really get much sun exposure. And if these people are having symptoms, for instance, someone who has severe muscle cramps, muscle pains, tiredness, fatigue, bone pains, symptoms that can't be explained otherwise, then the doctor and the dietitian together might want to assess the level of calcium, the level of vitamin D in the body, and any other reason. For instance, someone who's anemic could have each one of these symptoms. It need not necessarily be all due to vitamin D deficiency. But such a situation, if they are prone to significant vitamin D deficiency, yes, they will require vitamin D supplements under supervision until these levels return to normal. So the requirement varies depending on how old you are, what demographic set you belong to. For instance, pregnant women and breastfeeding women, they should take vitamin D for multiple reasons. Younger children, they require more vitamin D than other people. And as Dr. DP said, older individuals over the age of 75, they may require more vitamin D for uh, just for the fact that they don't really get out much in the sun. Most of them stay indoors. I'm not generalizing here, but if you take someone who's an average age of 75 to 80 and compare them to someone with an average age of 25 to 35, you can imagine the amount of sun exposure will be considerably lower for the older age group. Of course, there are exceptions. So these individuals, you must have a lower threshold for prescribing vitamin D if it's clinically indicated. Now, there's a tendency in India to do these health checkups, right? That's really much of the health checkups that we do in India are really not evidence based. They are more empiric and lab driven. So it is important that adults need to check know their blood pressure, their fasting sugar values, and their cholesterol, their height, their abdominal circumference. But to do an extraordinarily large number of blood tests for no reason in someone in apparently good health, it does not serve them much good unless it's clinically directed. Vitamin D appears on almost all what's
Health
called the
packaging.
checkup panels, packages, that's what they call them in this part of the world. Now, there is no reason to do that, and the Endocrine Society has clearly made a statement. There is no need to screen individuals, in at least people under the age of 75. But as I said, if someone has a clinical symptom, someone is not feeling well, has a problem, yes, they must consult their doctor and ask the doctor what the problem is. So doing a lab test is not the answer. The third problem with vitamin D level is if you go to different labs, each one of them will have a different level with rather diffuse sounding terms like sufficiency, insufficiency, deficiency, and normal levels. Now, how does the how does the Aam Aadmi put up with all these numbers? They can become overtly anxious if their numbers read you are deficient in vitamin D, and so they might run to the store and pop a few vitamin D pills and overdose themselves. That's my concern. So the Endocrine Society guidelines that you mentioned, Sumi, in the beginning of the talk, they clearly say there is no indication to check vitamin D levels in someone without clinical reason. So that's one. Now, if you ask me what level, doctor, would you be concerned, I will say this. Many studies are primarily based on vitamin D levels in Western populations, primarily white, which is called Caucasian populations. There are studies done in India. For instance, the Armed Forces Medical College, AFMC in Pune, has put out a beautiful study from across India on what the normal levels would be in India. I would recommend our listeners to take a look at that study. And it tells us that the levels that are purportedly normal for the Western population, if you apply them for India, you might find that a very large number of people are deficient. Does that mean they're really deficient? I'll give you an example. The average height in someone in the Netherlands they're quite tall people. It could well be close to 6 feet. Now, if we apply that height as normal height in India, all of us, including me, would be called short or abnormally, height is abnormal. So likewise, vitamin D level might require some customization based on region, based on race, even based on skin color. For instance, someone who's of darker skin color might absorb a little less vitamin D and so on. So it's a very complex field there. In general, I'll say this, if your vitamin D levels are below 10, yes, typically these people do require supplements. I'm talking across the board after analyzing dozens and dozens of papers on this.
Yeah. So you mentioned about, the Western standards not applying there. Do you think there is a need for India specific customization of sorts of, vitamin D range for India specific population according to the age groups that we have?
definitely, I'm sure Dr. Deepthi would agree with me that the Indian subcontinent, for many reasons, cannot be compared to the Western population. Our build is different, our diet is different, the amount of sun exposure, the physical activity patterns, the diseases we see here are different. Now, in terms of diet, yes, I agree that many Indians are vegetarian and they might not take a lot of vitamin D naturally in their diet. But I'm glad the government of India has has made a fortification of vitamin D of foods with vitamin D possible. Because if you really ask me, the Western, if you live in Western nations, most of their vitamin D actually comes from things like fortified orange juice, fortified milk, and so on. And I'm glad in India we have access to such fortified foods as well. And it's physically not possible for everyone to go out and stand in the sun in the hope of getting vitamin D.
Right. So there is some scientific evidence to this, and some doctors also sort of endorse this. That kids, for instance, the kids in the growing age, for example, should take low dose vitamin D supplementation throughout the year, maybe, and particularly during the winter months. I want both of you to answer this. Do you support this sort of endorsement?
I don't support this sort of endorsement. I think it must be carefully thought out by renowned pediatricians in India. I would ask the Indian Academy of Pediatricians that question. I know that the Endocrine Society has said that people under the age of 17 may require vitamin D supplements, but should all the children be popping pills? I don't think so. They ought to take, instead, they should be counsel to have regular physical activity, because our children are increasingly indoors. They sit behind mobile phones and computer screens and video games and also online tuition. Our children must be
Now in
encouraged to go
Delhi, it's
that way.
necessitated because of the pollution also. Our children
Yes,
are
absolutely.
shut down, and
Yes,
they have
yeah.
to do their classes online.
That's true.
Yeah,
But we are talking about, pollution is temporary. It's not that these children are stuck indoors. But as a
right.
habit, they should really be encouraged to drink milk products, yogurt. These are cheap, effective, and highly nutritious food in the growing age. So I would not advocate so much milk in someone who's an adult as I would in a child. But I'm crossing on to Dr. Deep's territory there, because
Yeah,
she's a
yeah. Dr.
qualified
Dipti,
dietitian here and
we would also
will
like to hear
get her
you
input
on
on
this,
this.
please.
Yeah. So I totally agree. So this should not be a blind statement. And I think as we initiated the talk with that we have to be cautious. And as a nutritionist, I think Sir would also agree that the first focus should be on the natural, healthy lifestyle, which includes not just physical activity, but also the diet and what Sir has been saying. So, absolutely right. When we have the access to the fortification of the foods which are available, and it is not just the milk and milk products, but now we have a lot of breakfast cereals which are being fortified. Even there is a program which is undergoing with the government is the fortification of the rice, because the idea of fortification is to add the nutrient into a particular food group which is at the mass level is being consumed. And if we are little cautious of what we are eating along with the regular physical activity, this problem can be taken care of on a regular basis.
Right.
But yes, depending on individual case to case, we might have to go for an, as said, that if there are symptoms, then also we should not be ignoring it. Because vitamin D again is not just impacting the bone health or but it also have an impact on the respiratory problems. As well as during COVID, the scientific researchers were very clear that vitamin D is associated with also your immunity also. How strong is your immunity would also to some part is taken care by vitamin D. So vitamin D also helps in the calcium absorption, and if your vitamin D is lacking, then we have to take care. So we have to be case specific. We have to treat what the values are, and if the values are not very low, then I think with these simple cautious things that we can go in. And as I would say, I think for the guidelines which are being given, but in the initial first year of the baby 0 to 12 years, they say it is important to give, but post that 1 to 18 years, it depends on case to case of what are the levels, and then we should go on the treatment, not just blindly go on that treatment.
Yeah. So the key messages here are that even during the winter months, there is no need to go for blind supplementation. If there are clinical symptoms, then get tested, and if the doctor prescribes, then go for it. Right? This is what I understood so far. Correct me if I'm wrong, Dr. Jaydevan and Dr. Deepti. And
That's true.
any,
Broadly
That's
speaking,
that's true.
yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Broadly speaking, what you said
Yeah,
summarizes the
yeah,
situation.
yeah. Would you to summarize this? Would you want to give some key messages to our listeners and viewers as well?
Yes, do not listen to shortcuts or miracle cures proclaimed on social media. There are a lot of fake experts on social media
Right.
who look well dressed and speak very impressively, but they may not really have your good interest in mind when they speak about certain products, regardless of whether it's vitamin D or any other products. There are experts like Dr. Deepti who are qualified registered dietitians. They will know what the ins and outs of diets are. So I always tell my patients, if the doctor does not really have a lot of time to listen to your symptoms, if it's a very crowded clinic, make an appointment with your dietitian. They will explain to you, they will go through your diet patterns, your health in overall detail. They have a lot of training and knowledge, and they will recommend the right things for you. So do not. That's my key message. We take a lot of care in deciding what phone to buy and what dresses to wear. But do we care about the quality of information we read and believe? No, we must be very careful about who we choose to listen to and to believe. I'm glad, Sumi, you've got us both on board here. So I'll encourage our viewers to be discerning about the quality of information they receive. And do not blindly believe anything that you hear, no matter how miraculous, how convenient it sounds like.
Very important information there. Thank you so much, Dr. Jaydevan and Dr. Deepti, for joining us in this conversation. To our
I would just like to end by two simple sayings, and I think Sir would totally agree. In medicine or in diet, in the medical healthcare, there is no one size which suits everyone. So I think we have to individualize in terms of the supplementation, whether you talk about the medical treatment or you talk about the dietary aspects. And also, one most important thing, which I think ICMR guidelines are very clear, and our prime minister has also been saying go local. So based on what kind of the temperatures that we are, our genetics are being made like that. So I do get lot of myths. Like a simple myth would be people saying not to have oranges and it's citrus in winters, but then nature has created, because vitamin C is an excellent source of immunity as an antioxidant. So we should go as much as local foods, because they have been, nature has gifted us based on the genetics that we have, rather
and
than
then
just going
and
on
what our
the.
body requires us during that time of the
Yes,
year, right?
yes, yes. So as Sir said, like vitamin D, based on the color, based on lot of parameters we go on, the recommendations would be different. Similarly, it goes with the food, and we need to take that into definitely the consideration, and we should try as much as local. Our elders have also been grown like that, and I think they have been an excellent example of a good living that we probably look for now, because of the processed and other health concerns that we are getting. So just as much as possible, focus on your lifestyle, focus on your locally available foods, and in case of any need, reach to your healthcare people, rather than just blindly going on any suggestion or any one saying anything. So totally agree with you, sir. Thank you so much.
Yeah, really appreciate both of you joining us today. To our viewers and listeners, we have a request. If you want to hear from us on any health related topic, reach out to us and write to us in the comment box. Thank you so much, Dr. Jaydevan and Dr. Deepti. Thanks.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.